I'm Zach Reading, and this is Market Capital Microcosms in the Maltese Falcon. The statuette is haunting San Francisco. In Karl Marx and Frederick Engels' manifesto of the Communist Party, the world had thrust upon it these words and new ideals, which followed that would inspire generations. These ideals were inspired by and drawn from the degradation of the human spirit, which Marx and Engels saw as torn asunder by the influences and reductionism of the capitalist system. A system which, quote, has left remaining no other nexus between man and man than naked self-interest and callous cash payment. Through analyzing the microcosm of commodity capitalism created within Dashiell Hammett's The Maltese Falcon, in the purview of the larger market system of the U.S., we find a demonstration of the failures and trappings of the capitalistic system and its inability to sustain people or their relationships due not only to the inherent endless pursuit caused by the system, but also the necessary lack of value of commodities which are crucial to the system's structure. In a similar fashion to the 2013 film Snowpiercer, we see a critique of the market capitalist system in the Maltese Falcon, not through direct rhetoric, as in the Communist Manifesto, but through a series of allegorical and realistic figures which demonstrate to the reader the trappings of the market capitalist system. These figures and the relationships established between them in the settings of San Francisco within the Maltese Falcon become the reader's microcosm in which the larger market capitalist system can be understood. These figures and the relationships between them exist throughout the Maltese Falcon, but are most interesting to examine when they are directly influenced by the event horizon which begins to occur around the Falcon statuette as it demonstrates its effects on the figures in our novel. The first and most crucial figure of the Maltese Falcon is Sam Spade. Spade's relationship to the Falcon and the other characters in the novel is paramount to understanding the microcosm and inherent critique of the market capitalism system in the novel. Spade is the main focus of the novel, and early on it's apparent that he's already inundated with the individualistic mindset which is described by Marx. This mindset of Spade's can be seen not only through his self-imposed isolation, in that he lives alone, but also in his desire to be a one-man show. Spade is not only conforming, in the early stages of the novel importantly, to the general idea of alienation described by Karl Marx, but also to the specific kinds of alienation which Marx outlines in Economic and Philosophic Manuscripts of 1844, which ultimately lead to, quote, labor becoming an object, an external existence, but that it exists outside of him, independent of him, as something alien to him, and that it becomes a power of its own confronting him, end quote. We see these forms of alienation, from separation from the product, their production itself, from their species, and even other workers, begin to appear more and more throughout the novel following the death of Spade's partner, Archer. Following this death, there is a minimal at best period of mourning, and this mourning is followed by Spade telling Effie, Spade's assistant, to, quote, have the Spade and Archer taken off the door and Samuel Spade put on, end quote. This desire for complete independence, especially within the setting of a business, is a trademark of market capitalism. The idea of independence, or at least the appearance of it within the working place, is not only an example of alienation, but also an upholding of the bootstraps mentality of the current era. Spade's relationship ability is also already compromised by the time that the Falcon enters the novel, as evidenced by his sexual relationship with Archer's wife. This affair being explicitly sexual, as evidenced by Spade telling Effie to keep Eva, Archer's wife, away from him, is crucial, as even in a situation where the relationship could advance following Archer's death, Spade is insistent on maintaining his independence, which lends itself once more to a Marxist interpretation, as Marx notes in the Communist Manifesto, quote, the proletarian is without property. His relation to his wife and children has no longer anything in common with the bourgeois family relations, end quote. How Spade's new relationships develop now become crucial in determining the ability of the Maltese Falcon to represent and thus critique market capitalism at large. One of the most crucial relationships in the Maltese Falcon is the one between Bridget and Spade. This relationship starts off, at least apparently, as purely transactional. Quote, we didn't exactly believe your story, we believed your $200, end quote. This is fitting with Spade's character, as we have seen it to this point in the novel. This money-hungry side of Spade, while not overwhelming at this point, seeing as he leaves Bridget with some of her money to survive after she has paid him to continue helping him, is exacerbated in the following scenes with the introduction of the specter of the statuette. Joel Cairo, notably foreign and queer, as Spade likes to point out throughout the novel, is the first person to make direct mention of the Maltese Falcon to Spade, as well as the first to assign an actual value to the statuette within the novel. At this point in the novel, the Maltese Falcon is first given a price point. The Maltese Falcon is established as a commodity here. This becomes almost parodically fetishized throughout the course of the rest of the novel. So, after a brief display of machismo from Spade when he disarms Cairo and knocks him out, he is given the offer of $5,000 to recover the statuette by Cairo. The price point is by far the largest that has been seen for any good or service in the novel so far, and Spade is quick to take him up on this offer after confirming that it is legitimate. In this new pricing, we also see Spade reach another marker within the Communist Manifesto, in which we see in miniature, remembering that the Falcon is but a microcosm of the larger capitalistic system, the ways in which, quote, the bourgeoisie cannot exist without constantly revolutionizing the instruments of production and thereby the relations of production, and with them, the whole relations of society, end quote. Following this encounter with Cairo and Spade's introduction to the microcosm created by the statuette, we see the transactional nature, which he was already inundated with, accelerate at a rapid pace. At this point, Spade returns to Bridget with the newly generated value of his labor, $5,000, to see if her offer would increase, as well as to gather information. While Bridget is unable to top his offer, at least monetarily, seeing as she offers her body to Spade in return for his services, which he considers, Spade gives her one more chance to earn his trust, though this allowance is mostly due to the use which she could have in Spade's hunt for the Falcon. Following these negotiations, Spade meets Gutman, the most allegoric figure in the entire novel, and one who exists solely within the microcosm of market capitalism as created by the Maltese Falcon. Gutman, in his description and actions, is the embodiment of the market capitalist system. Through Spade sizing him up, we are given the key traits of Gutman. Quote, the fat man was flabbily fat, with bulbous pink cheeks, and as he advanced to meet Spade, all his bulbs rose and shook and fell separately with each step, end quote. Gutman, even in the sheer number and repetitious use of these words, is excess. He, like the system which he embodies, is swollen and constantly moving, just like the market system must necessarily be in order to maintain its illusion of always growing. Gutman is also full of performance. In every interaction with Spade, everything seems set as on a stage, and in the closing of the first meeting, Gutman even makes reference to their next meeting as a curtain call. This inherent excess and performance become key traits of the microcosm created by the statuette, and in the inflation of value we see with the price of this commodity in the following scenes. Along with the negative effects on Spade's relationships, we see the critique begin to form. At their next meeting, the value of the statue, as well as its not so inconsequential history, I'll get to that shortly, are revealed. The statuette is once again revalued in the next meeting between Gutman and Spade, and it is here that the nature of value of commodities in a market capitalist system is most heavily critiqued. In Gutman and Spade's meeting, we see the parodic inflation of value, which has already somewhat occurred, reach new heights, as the price jumps from the $200 at the beginning of the novel for Spade to take the case from Bridget to a minimum of $2 million in Gutman's estimate. While there has been more information given about the statuette which would increase its value, it is worth noting the frivolity with which the price of the commodity jumps. Quote, then you think the dingus is worth $2 million? Gutman smiled serenely. In your words, why not? End quote. The price of the Falcon is revealed here to be tied to nothing more than mere speculation and fraud, as the price can seemingly be increased arbitrarily depending on how badly people want it. This is perhaps the most clear-cut example of a critique of commodity fetishism in the novel, and it is worth taking into consideration, alongside this critique of arbitrary value, the history of the statuette and how that relates to Spade's assessment of Cairo. The life of the Falcon is one with deep ties to colonial systems. The statuette was first generated out of an acknowledgement of a colonial reality. The Maltese Falcon was a display of the exuberant wealth created by this colonial system. This same upholding of the colonial system is seen in the first interaction between Cairo and Spade, when, after Spade knocks Cairo out, Spade loots Cairo's belongings and, quote, began to examine his spoils, end quote. The Falcon, just like the market capitalist system, is one which is founded on the creation of exuberant wealth from arbitrary factors and colonial oppression. It is with this understanding of the microcosm which the bird has created that we can see the final effects of commodity fetishism in the market capitalist system on relationships. Sam's worldview, as stated, was already one which is clouded by the market capitalist system, as evidenced by his desire for independence. This worldview, while it's hard to say whether or not it was necessarily altered or increased by the introduction of the Falcon, which has served as a petri dish for uncontrolled market capitalism in society, the extent of Sam's worldview has certainly been exacerbated and at least revealed by the Falcon. By the end of the novel, we see that this vacuous sense of value, as is shown by the Falcon, has completely obfuscated Skate's judgment and even his language. In his final meeting with Bridget, when he sells her out, he crucially says that he doesn't, quote, know what that amounts to, end quote, in reference to the value of Bridget's love over potentially dooming himself for his involvement in the crimes of the novel. The capitalist system, which is embodied by the statuette and the happenings around it, has turned all discussion of worth in the novel towards either a monetary or a selfish sense of value, in which everything has a dollar sign preceding it or the potential to create money in the future. Spade's relationships fail ultimately due to this system, even the one which seemingly existed outside of the microcosm of the Maltese Falcon with Eva is unable to be maintained because of Sam's vast desire for independence.